F1 officials being friends with Epstein, Fernando Alonso's plane crash, an F1 driver murdered during an F1 race. This is the F1 Iceberg, keeping in line with the structure of an iceberg with relatively lighter cases at the top and the dark, depraved side at the bottom. Blue Ferrari. There was a time when Enzo himself had a blue Ferrari F1 out on track, eventually bringing John Surtees to the Drivers' Championship and the team to the Constructors' Championship in 1964. In the 1964 Formula One season, Ferrari made significant advancements by reintroducing V8 engines and unveiling a groundbreaking Monaco chassis for the first time. Piloted by drivers Lorenzo Bandini and John Surtees, the Ferrari 158 achieved remarkable success, securing 7 podium finishes, 2 pole positions, and 2 victories across 10 races. The original chassis, adorned in the iconic Rosso Corsa hue, boasted striking turquoise rims, adding to its allure and distinctiveness, and during this period, Formula One teams typically raced under their respective national colors, with Italy associated with sky blue for traditional sports and vibrant red for motorsports. However, a pivotal decision by the FIA and the Italian Automobile Club before the final 2 rounds of the season would alter Ferrari's iconic red livery indefinitely. The roots of this decision can be traced back to 1962, when Enzo Ferrari sought to homologate his 250 GTO for GT racing, and facing regulatory hurdles mandating the production of 100 road models for homologation, Ferrari resorted to deceptive tactics to satisfy the requirements. By the time 1964 arrived, Ferrari aimed to homologate the new 250 LM race car. However, the FIA remained vigilant, denying Ferrari's request this time around. Disappointed by the rebuff and feeling unsupported by the ACI, which had been previously deceived by Ferrari's ploys, Enzo Ferrari made a decision. Frustrated and angered, he severed all ties between Ferrari and Italy, relinquishing the team's competitor's license, and subsequently the American and Mexican rounds of the championship witnessed unprecedented circumstances. Ferrari was symbolically represented by the satellite constructor NART on the grid, donning a distinctive white and blue livery, a stark departure from the iconic red, and despite the unconventional circumstances, John Surtees managed to secure second-place finishes in both races. Initially, Enzo Ferrari vowed never to race under Italian colors again, but his resolve proved short-lived, and ultimately, Ferrari's enduring legacy and association with the iconic Rosso Corsa were too deeply entrenched to be permanently forgotten. Daddy's Crash. Daddy's Crash is a satirical song created by YouTuber Sim Dane in 2018, ridiculing the practice of wealthy individuals securing seats in Formula One for their offspring. The song humorously highlights Lance Stroll's entry into Williams due to his billionaire father Lawrence Stroll's influence, followed by his subsequent move to the Racing Point, now Aston Martin team, which his father had acquired a stake in. The song's popularity, with close to 1 million views, reflects the widespread recognition of the trend within the Formula One community. 2 years later, a second rendition of the song was released, this time poking fun at Nikita Mazepin and his father Dimitri's investment in the Haas F1 team, as well as Nicholas Lafferty's less than stellar performances at Williams, supported by his father Michael's financial backing. Through humor and satire, Daddy's Cash sheds light on the influence of wealth and privilege in the world of Formula One. Discussions about the fairness and meritocracy of the sport. Jim Clark driving one-handed. Jim Clark is often hailed as one of the greatest drivers of all time, and for good reason. His talent behind the wheel was undeniable, and even when faced with mechanical issues, he displayed remarkable skill and determination. In the 1963 Formula One season, Clark encountered challenges right from the start, and in Monaco, he demonstrated his speed by securing pole position, but was unfortunate to suffer a gearbox failure while comfortably leading the race. Moving on to Spa for the next round, Clark faced further gearbox problems and qualified lower than expected. However, his lightning-fast start and exceptional driving skills allowed him to quickly take the lead despite the rain and gearbox issues. What makes Clark's performance at Spa particularly remarkable is his ability to manage the gearbox problems while driving at high speeds, including navigating through the perilous Mas de Kink with one hand on the gear lever, and despite these setbacks, Clark's dominance was evident as he lapped the entire field up to second place, Bruce McLaren, who finished almost 5 minutes behind. Clark's victory at Spa was the first of his record-breaking 7 wins in the 1963 season, a feat that remained unmatched until 1984, as his ability to overcome adversity and still dominate races solidifies his status as one of the greatest drivers in the history of Formula One. Spa, 1998. Formula One's relationship with weather has always been tense, and while most races bask in the dry, sunny glory, the occasional rain-soaked event throws a wrench into the meticulously planned calendar. And that's where the debate gets heated, because since Jules Bianchi's tragic accident in 2014, race control has become overly cautious in wet conditions, leading to an increase in red flags and safety cars. And this is where Spa-Francorchamps comes, located in the Ardennes, notorious for its unpredictable weather. The 2021 race weekend was a prime example, because instead of letting the drivers tackle the manageable rain, they waited for it to worsen, eventually sending them out for 2 meaningless laps behind the safety car before calling it a day. And while race control's general cautiousness and limitations of wet tires played a role, another factor lurks in the shadows: the memory of 1998. The chaotic race started similarly, with heavy rain on Sunday, and unlike 2021, the weekend had been dry until then. But the real drama unfolded down the Eau Rouge as David Coulthard, emerging from a cloud of spray, misjudged and collided with the wall, triggering a 13-car pileup. The red flag flew, and over an hour was spent clearing the mess. It's important to remember that back then, restarts after early red flags meant no official retirements, and teams had spare cars, and Jordan emerged unscathed, while others lost both, with only 8 drivers restarting. But the drama didn't stop there. Mika Häkkinen, the championship leader, spun after contact with Michael Schumacher, handing the lead to Damon Hill, and later, Schumacher and Coulthard tangled in a controversial blue flag incident, both blaming each other. Hill ultimately won, Jordan's first victory, while Häkkinen retained his championship lead. Schumacher, despite the win, couldn't bridge the gap. Looking back, even Schumacher admitted his clash with Coulthard was a racing incident, highlighting the need for clear blue flag rules. Now, fast forward to 2021. Imagine a similar chain of events. Checo's crash, limited restarts due to no spares, Hamilton and Verstappen colliding, culminating in an Aston Martin 1-2. Formula One fans can only dream, or maybe have nightmares, of the unpredictable spectacle that could have been. GigaKubica. Robert Kubica maintains a devoted following, distinguished as one of the few Formula One drivers hailing from Eastern Europe. Once hailed as a potential champion, his trajectory was abruptly altered by a near-career-ending rally crash in 2011. Admirably, Kubica showcased immense resolve and determination upon his return to the Formula One circuit with Williams in 2019, and despite piloting the slowest car on the grid and contending with the lingering effects of his injuries and numerous surgeries, Kubica's comeback was marked by significant challenges. Most notably, he had to adapt to having nearly all controls on his steering wheel relocated to the left-hand side due to the extent of his injuries. Consequently, he struggled to replicate his previous performance levels and emerged as a mere shadow of his former self, and throughout the season, Kubica found himself consistently outperformed in qualifying sessions by his rookie teammate George Russell. However, amidst the difficulties, Kubica managed to clinch a solitary point for the team, showcasing glimpses of his past prowess, and in September of that year, the Formula One community was introduced to the viral sensation GigaKubica through a YouTube video. This humorous creation depicted Kubica's car diligently enlarged and inserted into various race scenarios, spawning from the inspiration of similar content like the "There's Some Big Competition in Racing These Days" video series and the Big M8 images. The GigaKubica meme template has since become a popular tool within the Formula One community, often utilized to humorously reference drivers renowned for their proficient defensive driving skills, such as Fernando Alonso. The 1970s marked an era of remarkable advancements in aerodynamics within Formula One, led primarily by Lotus and the visionary Colin Chapman, as their trailblazing innovations revolutionized the sport's technological landscape. Beginning with the introduction of wings on a Formula One car in 1968 with the Type 49B, Chapman's ingenuity continued to push boundaries, and the Type 72D and 72 showcased the first side-mounted radiators and overhead air intake, setting the stage for further breakthroughs. However, it was the unveiling of the Type 78 in 1977 that truly epitomized Chapman's visionary approach, introducing ground effect technology with a pair of inverted aerofoil wings and sealing skirts. The subsequent Type 79 launched in 1978, perfected this concept, rendering other cars unable to match its performance. And while competitors and engineers struggled to decipher Lotus's advancements, Gordon Murray, Brabham's technical director, unraveled the mystery by the start of 1978. However, he realized that conventional Venturi tunnels couldn't be effectively implemented due to the constraints of Brabham's wide, flat 12 Alfa Romeo engine, and drawing inspiration from the Chaparral 2J's pioneering fan technology in the Can-Am series, Murray devised an alternative solution. Tyrrell's experimentation with a small fan in 1978 for engine cooling hinted at the potential for increased downforce, prompting Murray to adopt a single, large fan connected directly to the car's engine in the BT46-5. This groundbreaking design transformed the aerodynamics of Formula One, as engine speed now dictated downforce levels, and despite concerns over movable aerodynamic devices, the fan's dual function as an engine cooler initially circumvented regulations. Niki Lauda's remarkable adaptation to the BT46B's unprecedented downforce levels underscored its superiority, leading to his resounding victory in Sweden. However, controversy surrounded the car, prompting Brabham's voluntary withdrawal to maintain harmony within the sport during the tumultuous FISA-FOCA war, and while reverting to the A-Spec model with its own innovations such as carbon brakes. Brabham led the groundwork for future designs, incorporating Venturi tunnels into their forthcoming endeavors. Indianapolis 2005. I could delve into great detail about this, but I'll attempt to keep it concise. During Friday practice for the 2005 United States Grand Prix, Ralf Schumacher experienced a crash at the Brickyard's iconic banking due to a left rear tire failure, and Toyota's test driver, Ricardo Zonta, took over the remainder of the weekend, only to encounter the same issue at Turn 4. All eyes turned to their tire supplier, Michelin, which hastily dispatched replacement rubber from France, only to find it plagued by the same problem. The demanding banking at Indianapolis has always placed immense stress on tires, exasperated by the track's recent repaving with more abrasive, grooved tarmac, and while no other Michelin-equipped teams experienced tire failures, the three Bridgestone teams encountered no issues, as it became evident that the tires were flawed and incapable of enduring a race distance as mandated by regulations. Various solutions were proposed, including speed-limiting Michelin teams or implementing a temporary chicane on the banking, and despite agreement among Minardi, Jordan, and the Michelin teams to install a chicane, Ferrari's Jean Todt vetoed the idea. Subsequent discussions veered towards making it a non-championship event, leading to a tense standoff between the Michelin teams, Jordan and Minardi against Ferrari, Bruno Ecclestone, and the FIA. However, with financial interest prevailing, the race proceeded as scheduled, and during the formation lap, all 7 Michelin teams pulled into the pit lane, leaving only the Ferraris, Jordans, and Minardis on the grid. Although Paul Stoddard of Minardi was hesitant to race, he relented to maintain Minardi's constructors' battle with Jordan. As expected, the race lacked excitement, with the Ferraris dominating and securing a 1-2 finish. Meanwhile, the Jordans and Minardis initially ran closely but eventually spread out, with Thiago Monteiro clinching an unexpected 3rd place. As the lackluster race unfolded, many spectators left, and those who remained expressed their discontent with jeers and thrown objects. So Indianapolis 2005 will always be remembered as a race that should have been canceled on safety grounds, instead went ahead half-heartedly, well, because of money, of course. Surface level. Minardi's pole position. It's the 2003 French Grand Prix, and the perennial underdogs of Formula One, Minardi, find themselves continuing their familiar position at the back of the grid as their drivers Jos Verstappen and Justin Wilson struggle, noting the slowest times in both Friday practice sessions. A new qualifying format for the season, however, adds a twist, as instead of the traditional setup, there are 2 single-lap qualifying sessions. The first, held on Friday, sees drivers run in championship order, while the second, on Saturday, reverses the standings from the first session. As fate would have it, Verstappen and Wilson are scheduled to run last in the first session, typically an advantage as the track would have more rubber and offer better grip. However, rain interrupts, causing slower times across the board, and midway through the session, the rain clears and the track begins to dry. Seizing the opportunity, the underdog teams, including Minardi, capitalize, and Ralph Furman's Jordan unexpectedly grabs provisional pole. Verstappen takes to the track next and, on a nearly dry surface, shatters Furman's time by a remarkable 2.7 seconds, with Wilson following suit, coming in less than 2/10 behind, hinting at a potential front-row lockout for Minardi. However, Wilson's time is annulled after the session due to a weight discrepancy in his car. Saturday brings no rain, dashing hopes of a historic pole for Verstappen and Minardi, as both drivers improve their times, but so do their competitors. Ultimately, they settle back into their usual positions, with Verstappen narrowly missing out on beating the Jordans, and despite the excitement, the events expose flaws in the qualifying setup, prompting changes in subsequent seasons. From 2006 onwards, drivers could set laps freely, although certain restrictions remained until 2022, highlighting the evolving nature of Formula One regulations. Blown diffuser. Following the rule adjustments in 2009, Formula One entered a period marked by speculation and intrigue surrounding various teams' diffuser designs, as Braun, Williams, and Toyota sent shockwaves with their implementation of the double diffuser, a legal innovation that left rival teams feeling somewhat envious for not having thought of it first. In 2010, Red Bull and McLaren joined the double diffuser trend, taking it a step further by positioning their exhausts directly in front of it, thus creating the double-blown diffuser, as this ingenious setup significantly boosted downforce when the cars were under power. As the double diffusers were eventually outlawed, Red Bull raised the stakes in 2011 with their off-throttle exhaust-blown diffuser, and through clever manipulation of engine maps, they maintained a constant flow of exhaust gases over the diffuser, enhancing performance. McLaren and other teams attempted to replicate this innovation with varying degrees of success, while some, like Lotus Renault, experimented with unconventional ideas such as forward-facing exhausts. The British Grand Prix marked a turning point when off-throttle diffusers were initially banned, allowing non-exhaust blown cars like Fernando Alonso's Ferrari to seize victory, and although off-throttle diffusers were later reinstated, they faced a complete ban in 2012. Nevertheless, Formula One teams continued to explore alternative methods to maximize aerodynamic performance. Crashgate. In 2008, the Formula One world witnessed the debut of the Singapore Grand Prix, marking the sport's first ever night race, and the race unfolded dramatically, with Felipe Massa leading the pack and his title rival, Lewis Hamilton, close behind in second. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso found himself languishing in 11th place, but opted for an early pit stop on lap 12 to refuel, dropping to the back of the grid. However, an important moment happened when Alonso's teammate, Nelson Piquet Jr., suffered a crash at turn 17, prompting the deployment of the safety car. As the safety car was deployed, chaos ensued. The pit lane temporarily closed, creating a frenzied scramble among the drivers, and once it reopened, the majority of the field pitted for fresh fuel and tires. In the middle of all that chaos, Massa's pit stop turned disastrous as he exited with the fuel hose still attached. Meanwhile, Alonso capitalized on the situation, climbing to 5th place as others either delayed their pit stops or were forced to pit during the closed period to avoid running out of fuel, and drive-through penalties further boosted Alonso's position, propelling him to 3rd place. During the following pit stops, Alonso seized the lead and ultimately clinched his first victory of the season. However, the significance of the Singapore Grand Prix would resurface months later when Nelson Piquet Jr. shocked the Formula One world, as during the summer break, Piquet revealed that he had been instructed by Renault's management, including Flavio Briatore and Pat Simmons, to deliberately crash after Alonso's pit stop, a move aimed at securing track position through the deployment of the safety car. The revelation sparked outrage and led to a series of consequences for Renault. The World Motorsport Council charged the team with race fixing, resulting in the departure of Briatore and Simmons from Renault. Furthermore, the team faced a disqualification from Formula One, albeit suspended for 2 years. For Briatore and Simmons were handed indefinite bans from the sport, although these penalties were later overturned. Since then, Simmons has resumed his involvement in Formula One as a consultant for various teams, while Briatore has not made a return to the sport. The Singapore Grand Prix of 2008 stands as a significant chapter in Formula One history, highlighting the sport's complex dynamics and the repercussions of unethical behavior. Nico Hulkenberg, 0 podiums. Mr. Super Sub holds a rather unfortunate record in Formula One, boasting the most race starts without a podium finish. Across his 181 starts, he has come tantalizingly close to podium glory, securing 4th place on 3 occasions, but falling short of clinching a top 3 finish, and despite numerous opportunities and remarkable displays of skill, victory has remained elusive for him. One memorable moment in Nico Hulkenberg's career occurred during his rookie season in 2010 at the rain-soaked Brazilian Grand Prix. Against the odds, he stunned the grid by securing a sensational pole position while driving for the midfield team Williams. However, his race performance didn't match his qualifying feat as he slipped down to 8th place by the race's end. Then, in Belgium in 2012, he showcased his potential once again, navigating through first-lap chaos to briefly hold 2nd place. However, he couldn't maintain his position, eventually yielding to the Red Bulls of Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel. Another close call came at the Brazilian Grand Prix later that year when he surged to the lead in treacherous wet conditions. However, a risky maneuver to regain the lead resulted in contact with Lewis Hamilton, earning him a drive-through penalty and relegating him to a 5th place finish. Similar near misses occurred in the seasons to follow, and despite qualifying 3rd at the Italian Grand Prix in 2013, he couldn't convert it into a podium finish, settling for 5th place in the race. At Monaco in 2016, a promising start saw him climb to 3rd position, only to be hindered by traffic after a pit stop, allowing his teammate to claim the podium instead. In Austria, he suffered a poor start and brake issues after starting 2nd, while at Spa, a strong early showing saw him in 2nd place before ultimately finishing 4th, and even in the rain-drenched races at Brazil and the Hockenheimring in the following years, luck evaded him as he grappled with punctures, oil leaks, and ultimately crashed out while running in promising positions. Despite his undeniable talent and flashes of brilliance, Mr. Super Sub's quest for podium finish in Formula One has remained frustratingly elusive, cementing his status as the ultimate hard luck story in the sport's history. The South Africa boycotts. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Formula One found itself entangled in what became known as the FISA-FOCA war, and this conflict pitted the International Federation of Sport Automobiles, FISA, the sport's governing body, against the Formula One Constructors Association, FOCA, led by Bernie Ecclestone. FOCA's primary objective was to safeguard the interests of smaller customer teams against the dominance of larger manufacturer teams aligned with FISA. The war saw numerous disputes revolving around various aspects of the sport, including car designs like the innovative Brabham B246B, technical regulations, prize money distribution, and commercial rights. However, tensions escalated in 1982 when FISA attempted to enforce new super license conditions, effectively binding drivers to a single team for up to 3 years. In response, several prominent drivers, including Gilles Villeneuve, Didier Pironi, Niki Lauda, René Arnoux, Bruno Giacomelli, and Andrea de Cesaris, refused to sign the new agreement, and faced with the threat of exclusion from the opening round in South Africa, the drivers, organized under the Grand Prix Drivers Association, staged a sit-in at the Sunnyside Park Hotel in Kyalami. Elio De Angelis entertained his fellow drivers with his musical talents during the sit-in, while Teo Fabi clandestinely relayed discussions to Tolman team principal Alex Hawkridge, and ultimately, the strike was abandoned after assurances that drivers would not face penalties. However, all drivers were fined and handed a 2-race ban, leading to the establishment of the Professional Racing Drivers Association in place of the GPDA. The turmoil continued in South Africa due to mounting condemnation of the nation's apartheid policy, and Renault and Ligier boycotted the race under pressure from the French government, while Alan Jones withdrew amidst pressure from his team's sponsors' employees. Despite widespread condemnation of apartheid, most drivers felt contractually obligated to race, although attempts by various governments to prevent certain drivers from participating were unsuccessful. The South African Grand Prix did not return until 1992, after the end of apartheid, but was dropped again a year later due to escalating costs, and decades later, there have been calls, including a failed attempt by Jody Schechter's nephew, to revive the South African Grand Prix, aiming to provide much-needed representation for the African continent in the World Championship. Ferrari cheat engine. In the 2019 Formula One season, Ferrari faced a challenging start as they struggled to match the pace of their main rivals Mercedes, and despite having Sebastian Vettel and the promising Charles Leclerc in their lineup, they found themselves unable to mount a serious challenge to Mercedes in the early races. A notable setback occurred at the Bahrain Grand Prix, where Leclerc was poised for victory before engine troubles dashed his hopes. However, Ferrari's fortunes began to change after the summer break. They showed impressive performance at circuits like Spa, Monza, and Singapore, where they secured victories and podium finishes, and Leclerc demonstrated his potential by claiming pole positions and battling at the front of the grid, while Vettel showcased his skill with strategic race wins. Yet, controversy arose when suspicions emerged about the legality of Ferrari's power unit. Red Bull raised concerns about a potential device bypassing the mandatory fuel flow sensor, which could provide Ferrari with an unfair advantage in terms of engine performance, and the FIA investigated the matter and ultimately concluded that Ferrari's 2019 power unit was indeed illegal. However, they chose not to pursue formal prosecution and settled the issue privately with Ferrari, leaving many details undisclosed. This episode raised questions about fairness and competitiveness in Formula One, highlighting the challenges of maintaining a level playing field in the sport. Despite their mid-season surge in performance, Ferrari's reputation was tarnished by the controversy surrounding their power unit. Middle level. Spygate. Nigel Stepney was the main man in Ferrari's dominance during the early 2000s, initially serving as chief mechanic before assuming the position of race and test technical manager. However, in early 2007, dissatisfaction arose within the team due to internal restructuring following Ross Brawn's departure, so Stepney, seeking a new challenge, expressed his discontent but was instead appointed as head of performance development, relieving him of race attendance duties. During the summer of the same year, Ferrari lodged a formal complaint against Stepney, alleging the unauthorized sale of Ferrari parts to rival teams, and because of that, of course, he was fired from his position, and legal proceedings were initiated against him and McLaren's engineer Mike Coughlin. Coughlin was discovered to possess 780 pages of confidential Ferrari technical data, which had been copied by his wife at a photocopying shop in Woking. Ferrari had been alerted to this breach by an employee of the shop. Despite McLaren saying that they had no idea about the stolen data and their submission of full technical blueprints to the FIA, a World Motorsport Council hearing found them guilty of violating Article 151C of the International Sporting Code. However, no disciplinary measures were imposed due to the absence of evidence indicating the use of the data in their car's design. The case resurfaced months later following discovery of incriminating emails exchanged between Coughlin and McLaren drivers Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, and Pedro de la Rosa, prompting immunity agreements in exchange for cooperation. McLaren faced severe repercussions, being excluded from the Constructors' Championship and fined a record-breaking $100 million. In 2010, Stepney received a £600 fine and a 1-year and 8-month prison sentence, which he ultimately did not serve. Tragically, 4 years later, he passed away in a traffic accident. Hamilton tweeting data. Following his first championship victory, Lewis Hamilton's tenure at McLaren took on a bad turn, often referred to as his zombie years, marked by a series of mistakes, collisions, and inconsistent performances. Notably, in 2011, he was outperformed by his teammate Jenson Button, and his start to the 2012 season was fraught with difficulty. But one of the most notable moments of these zombie years was in 2012 when, during a stretch of races, Hamilton endured a string of disappointments, including 3 consecutive third-place finishes filled by strategic errors and technical catastrophes. In Bahrain, he went from 3rd to 8th due to botched pit stops, while in Barcelona, a refueling mistake resulted in disqualification from pole position, forcing him to start from the back of the grid. At the Belgian Grand Prix, tensions within the McLaren team reached a boiling point as Hamilton publicly aired his frustration on social media, posting confidential telemetry data comparing his performance to Button's, and this breach of protocol prompted swift intervention from the team, who instructed him to remove the tweets immediately. Hamilton's frustrations reached a peak during the race when he was eliminated in a collision with Romain Grosjean at Turn 1, while Button secured victory, and after that, Hamilton made the decision to depart McLaren, announcing his move to Mercedes for the 2013 season just 3 weeks later. Stefan Bellof's stint in Formula One was marked by immense talent overshadowed by a series of unfortunate events and controversies. Making his debut with Tyrrell in 1984, he showcased flashes of brilliance by securing a couple of points early in the season. However, it was at the Monaco Grand Prix where he truly shone, clinching his first podium amidst treacherous conditions. Monaco 1984 remains remembered primarily for Ayrton Senna's near-debut victory, interrupted by Alain Prost's gesture to stop the race due to torrential rain. As the regulations dictated, Prost was declared the winner based on the positions at the end of the previous lap, with Senna in second and Bellof in third, earning half points. Bellof's remarkable performance was even more remarkable given his disadvantageous starting position and lack of a turbocharged engine. Despite qualifying at the back of the grid, Bellof showcased exceptional car control and tire management as he climbed the grid very quickly in the rain-soaked race. His charge was relentless, closing in on Prost and Senna with remarkable speed, outpacing both significantly, and had the race continued, Bellof seemed destined to challenge for the lead and potentially secure his debut victory. However, Tyrrell's methods to stay competitive, including running underweight cars and using unconventional ballast techniques, cast a shadow over Bellof's achievements, as the team's disqualification from the championship due to infractions tarnished Bellof's legacy in F1. Undeterred, Bellof remained with Tyrrell for the 1985 season, finally acquiring a turbocharged car halfway through. Tragically, his promising career was cut short when he succumbed to a fatal crash during the 1,000-kilometer of Spa, while reigning as the World Sports Car Champion. Bellof's untimely demise marked the end of a career that promised so much, but was overshadowed by controversy and tragedy. Six-wheeled cars. The whole idea of cars having four wheels as a standard in Formula One might seem indisputable, given its long tradition, yet history reveals a different narrative. The pioneering Benz patent motor wagon of 1886, and the vehicles after it like the Reliant Robin, the original Daihatsu Midget, and the Bond Bug demonstrate that the concept of three-wheeled automobiles has existed. However, the transition to three wheels in Formula One has been met with skepticism, except for a few times like the ingenious experimentation by Tyrrell. Let us explain. During the mid-1970s, Formula One faced a sort of conundrum with the maximum front wing width of 1.5 meters, which often resulted in front wheels protruding from the chassis, leading to increased drag and disrupted airflow. Seeking a competitive edge within the constraints of the regulations, Tyrrell embarked on a daring endeavor under the direction of technical director Derek Gardner, and the result was the iconic P34, a six-wheeled marvel that defied convention and sent shockwaves across the paddock after its unveiling in 1975. The P34's unique design featured a second pair of smaller, leading wheels behind the standard front pair, providing enhanced grip and maneuverability in corners, and despite initial skepticism from driver Jody Scheckter, the car showcased its potential with a pole position and victory at the Swedish Grand Prix. However, challenges emerged on bumpy circuits where only one pair of front wheels made contact with the track, compromising stability and braking. Although the P34 secured several podium finishes, Tyrrell's fortunes dwindled due to limitations in tire development and subsequent rule changes, and the team reverted to conventional designs in 1978, marking the end of an extraordinary experiment in Formula One history. While Tyrrell was the sole team to race a six-wheeled car, the concept inspired others to explore similar innovations. March's Robin Herd conceived the 240, featuring four driving wheels, but it was abandoned due to technical issues. Ferrari and Williams also flirted with the idea, introducing variations like the 312 T6 and the FW08D, respectively. Yet regulatory constraints ultimately stifled further exploration of multi-wheeled configurations. Ultimately, the FIA's mandate for Formula One cars to have a maximum of four wheels, with only two driving wheels, marked the end of an era characterized by daring experimentation. Teams like Williams were compelled to adapt to the changing landscape, emphasizing turbocharged engines as the sport marched forward into a new era. Chelsea sponsoring Sauber in 2012. Sauber, recognizing the significance of strategic timing in sports, had been laying the groundwork for their agreement for the last 2 weeks prior to Chelsea's remarkable victory over Barcelona in the Champions League that season, so the announcement of their partnership with Chelsea FC couldn't have been better timed, as it coincided with the Spanish Grand Prix, which marked the start of the European leg of the Formula One season. This alignment of events not only amplified the exposure of both entities, but also added a unique dimension to the sporting landscape, particularly in Barcelona, where fans of both football and F1 converged. While some may have questioned the synergy between two seemingly different sports, Sauber CEO Minoshi Kaltenborn emphasized the shared interests and commercial opportunities between the Sauber F1 team and Chelsea FC, as both organizations faced similar challenges in the realms of sport and commerce, making collaboration mutually beneficial. Moreover, with Chelsea having celebrated their 20th year in the Premiership and Sauber having marked their 20th consecutive year in F1, the timing seemed serendipitous for this partnership. With both sports drawing substantial support and sponsorship from regions like the Middle East and Asia, the alliance aimed to further engage these markets, as this strategic move not only strengthened the global following of both sports, but also enhanced the visibility and reach of their respective brands. Red Bull rigged Verstappen's 2016 Spanish GP win. The 2016 Spanish Grand Prix saw a dramatic turn of events after the collision between Mercedes drivers Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. and this incident opened up the race for other contenders, including Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo and the newly promoted Max Verstappen, who impressed in his debut for the team. Ricciardo led the race after the chaos at the start, with Verstappen close behind, and the duo faced pressure from Ferrari's Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Räikkönen, who were also in contention for the win, with strategic battle unfolding as teams opted for different tire strategies to gain an advantage. Verstappen's two-stop strategy ultimately paid off, allowing him to secure his maiden Formula One victory and become the youngest race winner in history. However, Ricciardo's race was marred by a late puncture, which hindered his chances of challenging for the win. Those strategic decisions made by the Red Bull team raised eyebrows, particularly regarding Ricciardo's tire strategy. Some speculated that Red Bull intentionally favored Verstappen to create a fairy tale narrative for his debut victory. However, such claims remain speculative, and there is no concrete evidence to support them. Deeper middle level. Hamilton and Sutil were in a relationship. Yes, the title is correct. Let me explain. The incident involving Adrian Sutil and Eric Lux at a nightclub in 2011 and its aftermath certainly stirred up speculation and rumors, including those regarding the relationship between Sutil and his former teammate Lewis Hamilton. However, it's important to approach such rumors with caution, as they often lack substantial evidence and can be based on hearsay or conjecture. While Hamilton and Sutil were indeed teammates in the Formula 3 Euro Series and maintained a friendship during their early years in Formula 1, any claims about their romantic involvement are purely speculative and lack credible evidence. Both individuals have had relationships with women in the past, and their personal lives should be respected regardless of their sexual orientation. The suggestion that Hamilton declined to testify in court to avoid outing himself and Sutil is purely speculative and not supported by any concrete evidence. It's essential to respect individuals' privacy and not make any assumptions about their personal lives based on unfounded rumors. Ultimately, unless confirmed by Hamilton and Sutil themselves, any speculation about their relationship status should be treated with skepticism and respect for their privacy. As we mentioned, if they are indeed in a romantic relationship, they have chosen to keep it private, and it's not for others to speculate without evidence. Russell never had a puncture. Now we are getting to the hard conspiracy theory areas. The Sakir Grand Prix in 2020 presented a remarkable opportunity for Williams driver George Russell, who stepped into Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes seat after Hamilton tested positive for COVID-19. Russell's performance was exceptional, considering he had minimal preparation time and faced challenges with ill-fitting gear, and despite this, he qualified second and led the race until a series of unfortunate events cost him victory. A safety car period and subsequent pit stop miscommunication led to Russell being sent out with the wrong tires, compromising his race strategy. Nevertheless, he displayed impressive overtaking maneuvers and was on course for victory until a late race puncture dashed his hopes. The timing of the puncture raised questions, especially given the significance of Russell's performance as a potential future star and his direct comparison to Hamilton and Bottas. Conspiracy theories emerged speculating that Mercedes, fearing Russell's potential threat to Hamilton's dominance, intentionally sabotaged Russell's race to protect Hamilton's status. The pit stop blunder, unprecedented for Mercedes, and the timing of the puncture fueled speculation of foul play. Despite Russell's valiant recovery to secure points, the anticlimactic end to his race left many disappointed, and while these theories remain speculative, Russell's subsequent move to Mercedes and his competitive performances against Hamilton lend credence to the notion that the events at the Sakir Grand Prix could have broader implications for Mercedes' drivers' lineup and team dynamics. In the last 4 years, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted numerous Formula One drivers, with only 2 experiencing the unfortunate circumstance of contracting the virus mid-season: Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. Vettel's encounter with COVID occurred during preseason testing in 2022, causing him to miss the first 2 rounds of the championship. However, there are speculations suggesting that his illness might have been more than just a health setback. Vettel had been an outspoken figure concerning Formula One's association with human rights, particularly in countries like Bahrain and Jeddah, where the initial races of the season were held, and some speculate that his supposed COVID infection conveniently coincided with these controversial events, potentially preventing him from taking a stand and avoiding potential scandals by boycotting the races. Additionally, considering Vettel's contemplation of retirement at that time, missing these races could have provided him with an opportunity to reassess his commitment to the sport while observing from a distance. Upon his return to racing in Australia after recovering from COVID, Vettel endured what many consider to be the most challenging Grand Prix weekend of his career. Mechanical issues plagued his sessions, leading to a series of setbacks, including a memorable scooter ride back to the paddock after his car failed during FP1, limited running in FP2, a crash in FP3, a disappointing qualifying result, and ultimately a race-ending crash, and these incidents likely added to the pressure and speculation surrounding Vettel's future in Formula One. In hindsight, Vettel's difficult return to racing in Australia may have foreshadowed the challenges he would face in the subsequent stages of his career, and it is plausible that these events played a role in shaping his decision to retire from the sport not long after, signaling the end of an era for one of Formula One's most prominent drivers. On the third day of pre-season testing at Barcelona in 2015, Fernando Alonso made a return to McLaren after his controversial departure 7.5 years earlier. However, his comeback took a dramatic turn when he crashed into the inside wall at turn 3, leaving him unconscious. Alonso was immediately airlifted to the hospital and remained in intensive care for 2 nights, and because of that, he was unable to participate in the opening round in Australia and was replaced by Kevin Magnussen. The circumstances surrounding the crash were shrouded in mystery, with McLaren refusing to provide specific details, fueling speculation ranging from medical issues like an epileptic fit to potential mechanical failures such as an electrocution from the car's ERS system. Initial assessments by McLaren suggested the crash may have been caused by unusually gusty winds, but discrepancies emerged from photographs showing tire markings inconsistent with a typical spin, and to add to the mystery, amateur footage captured the car coming to a halt after the impact, which raised further questions. Alonso's absence from the Australian Grand Prix extended to a month before he publicly addressed the incident during a press conference at Sepang, and contrary to McLaren's explanation, Alonso stated that there was no wind and attributed the crash to a mechanical failure, specifically claiming that the steering unlocked. Eyewitness accounts from drivers like Sebastian Vettel, who was trailing Alonso at the time of the crash, did not help the case, with observations of Alonso's abrupt turning and relatively slow speed. The aftermath saw conflicting statements from McLaren officials regarding Alonso's condition, initially stating he was uninjured before later admitting to a concussion, and rumors circulating regarding potential memory loss, with alleged incidents of Alonso waking up in the hospital speaking Italian and believing he still drove for Ferrari, or even thinking he was 13 years old. Despite the availability of tracked CCTV footage and onboard cameras from Alonso and Vettel, the FIA seized the footage for their investigation, which has never been publicly released. The incident reignited discussions about the ease of driving Formula One cars, reminiscent of comments made during the early 2000s when electronic driver aids like traction control and launch control were reintroduced. The era saw unprecedented dominance for Michael Schumacher and Ferrari, prompting comparisons to monkeys being able to drive the cars, which we'll get to it in a second, due to their perceived simplicity. However, regulatory changes eventually banned these aids, returning the focus to driver skill and mechanical prowess. Monkeys can drive F1 cars. Now, we will have 2 short cases, but worth mentioning. First one is that monkeys can drive F1 cars. The mention of everyone's favorite press conference question likely alludes to a well-known incident or question posed during a press conference. However, it seems that the journalist may have inaccurately stated the dates in their recitation. The statement then transitions to discuss a significant development in Formula One during the early 2000s, the reintroduction of electronic driver aids that had been banned a decade earlier. These aids included traction control, launch control, and fully automatic transmission. The reintroduction of these electronic aids led to a period of unparalleled dominance by Michael Schumacher and Ferrari. This dominance prompted former champions like Niki Lauda and Nigel Mansell to make the infamous comment that monkeys could drive these cars, highlighting their belief that the technological advancements had made the cars too easy to drive. Many drivers shared this sentiment, leading to subsequent bans on launch control and traction control after a few years. As a result, Formula One reverted to using sequential gearboxes, and traction control was also banned to restore a greater degree of skill and challenge to the sport. The leaking of pictures from Sebastian Vettel's seat fitting with Aston Martin in early 2021 caused quite a stir among fans and observers. These images revealed the extent of Vettel's hair loss, which had been concealed under his Ferrari cap during his time with the team. His years with Ferrari, which were largely unproductive following his 4 consecutive titles with Red Bull, seemed to have taken a toll on him, as evidenced by his visibly aged appearance. In contrast, Lewis Hamilton, during his tenure as a McLaren driver, sported a buzz cut that, over the years of struggling post-championship, began to show signs of thinning and receding hair. However, since joining Mercedes and clinching 7 championship titles, Hamilton has sported a full head of hair adorned with his signature cornrows and braids. Interestingly, since parting ways with Ferrari, Vettel's hair seems to have made a comeback, albeit in a rather striking manner. Despite having the financial means to afford high-quality hair treatments or even a hair transplant, Vettel's current hairstyle has drawn criticism for its less than appealing appearance. Bianchi's points were a farce. Now, this is a sensitive topic, but that's why it's in the bottom level. So we hope if anyone finds themselves insulted by this, what can I do? This is the deepest part of the iceberg after all. Undoubtedly, one of the most notable accomplishments of the late Jules Bianchi's tragically brief Formula One career occurred when he secured not one, but 2 points for the then pointless Marussia team at the 2014 Monaco Grand Prix. After over 4 years, Marussia, one of the 3 new teams from 2010, finally entered the point standings, and this achievement not only resolved their struggle with primary rivals Chatterton for 10th place and the Constructors' Championship, but also elevated Marussia above the established Sauber team. However, upon closer examination, Bianchi's performance reveals some strange stuff. Despite qualifying in a somewhat typical 19th position, a grid penalty pushed him further back, starting 21st. While his race commenced with the top 20 due to Pastor Maldonado's absence, Bianchi faced challenges throughout. Despite these obstacles, Bianchi showcased resilience and skill, navigating through penalties, safety car periods, and strategic maneuvers to ultimately finish in 8th place, albeit with penalties affecting his final classification. Despite his remarkable climb through the field, it's important to acknowledge the circumstances surrounding his achievement, which might change your initial view of its magnitude. Nevertheless, R.I.P. Jules, you won't be forgotten. F1 officials in Epstein's book. In 2019, Jeffrey Epstein's famous Black Book was published, revealing an extensive list of his contacts, all belonging to the wealthy elite and high society. Among these names were notable figures from the world of motorsport, including Alejandro Agag, former CEO of the ADEX GP2 team and current CEO of Formula E, Alain de Cadenet, motoring TV presenter and former sports car driver, Bernie Ecclestone, the legendary figure in Formula One, Flavio Briatore, the controversial former boss of Benetton and Renault, Eddie Irvine, the former driver for Jordan, Ferrari, and Jaguar, Jacques Villeneuve, the 1997 Formula One world champion, and Lawrence Stroll, known for his financial support in racing circles. However, it's important to clarify that none of their names appeared on the flight logs for Epstein's private jet, known as the Lolita Express, during its journeys to the island associated with Epstein's illicit activities. Alonso died in a plane crash. In January 2009, Formula One driver Fernando Alonso and his then-wife Raquel de Rosario were reportedly involved in a minor plane incident. The incident occurred as they were departing from Melinda Airport in Kenya, where they had been staying at Flavio Briatore's resort, en route back to Spain, and according to initial reports, their plane jet's right wing clipped a building shortly after takeoff. Thankfully, the plane landed safely and both Alonso and his wife emerged unharmed, continuing their journey the next day. However, Alonso's agent later provided a conflicting account, stating that Alonso was not on board the plane during the incident and that it occurred while the aircraft was taxiing on the ground, and interestingly enough, 9 years later, Alonso himself admitted to discovering mentions of this incident while searching for information about himself online. He denied that it ever happened, adding a humorous twist to the situation, with jokes circulating that Alonso had Googled himself, only to discover he was supposedly deceased for several years. Despite the conflicting accounts and the lack of detailed information available online, the incident added a quirky footnote to Alonso's public persona. McLaren never paid the fine. If you followed our video until now, you know what this refers to. Despite being fined $100 million and excluded from the Constructors' Championship because of Spygate, there are suspicions that McLaren may have actually paid nothing at all. The $100 million fine was substantial, especially in the context of Formula One budgets. McLaren's estimated budget for 2007 was over $400 million, with a significant portion allocated to driver salaries alone, and despite this heavy fine, McLaren's 2008 car, the MP423, appeared to be an evolution of its predecessor, the MP422, with minimal changes internally and externally. Yet the car remained competitive, suggesting that the financial penalty did not significantly impact their performance. One possible reason McLaren may have not paid the fine is the lack of evidence that the stolen Ferrari data was used in their designing of their 2007 car. Additionally, the punishment required McLaren to design their 2008 car from scratch and submit full blueprints to the FIA for scrutiny, ensuring no Ferrari data was incorporated. However, the MP423 similarities to the previous car raised questions about the thoroughness of this process, and despite the financial penalty and exclusion from the Constructors' Championship, McLaren's performance in 2008 remained strong, with Lewis Hamilton achieving significant success. This raises doubts about the effectiveness of the punishment and whether McLaren faced any real consequences for their actions in the Spygate scandal. Like 2008, 2007 was full of drama and controversy, and aside from the Spygate scandal itself, a heated rivalry grew between teammates defending champion Fernando Alonso and rookie Lewis Hamilton. Despite being a rookie, Hamilton's exceptional performance challenged Alonso, the defending champion, throughout the season. However, the championship ultimately slipped away from both McLaren drivers, with Kimi Räikkönen clinching the title by just 1 point. Several incidents during the season raised eyebrows, including Hamilton's unexpected struggles in later races. A series of strategic decisions and mechanical issues, particularly in the Chinese and Brazilian Grand Prix, seemed to undermine Hamilton's championship hopes. Suspicion arose regarding McLaren's involvement in potentially favoring one driver over the other, especially considering the team's troubled relationship with Alonso and the fallout from the Spygate scandal. Hamilton's cryptic comment in 2012 about knowing things he couldn't discuss adds further intrigue to the situation, hinting at possible behind-the-scenes manipulation or agreements within McLaren. The suggestion that McLaren may have been willing to sacrifice the Drivers' Championship to avoid further penalties or scrutiny is a provocative one, albeit speculative. Ultimately, Hamilton's narrow defeat in 2007 only fueled his determination to succeed, leading to his subsequent triumphs in Formula One. However, the controversies and mysteries surrounding the 2007 season continue to intrigue fans and analysts, raising questions about the true nature of events behind the scenes. Senna was sniped. The circumstances surrounding Ayrton Senna's fatal accident at Imola in 1994 remain a subject of debate and speculation, and while an official cause was eventually declared to be the failure of the car's steering column, there are various inconsistencies and unanswered questions that continue to fuel speculation. Some argue that the behavior of the car before the crash, including a snap oversteer, braking, and subsequent impact with the barrier, suggests factors beyond a simple steering column failure. Damon Hill and Patrick Head of Williams, among others, pointed to potential driver error or other mechanical issues, such as a puncture or loss of tire pressure, as contributing factors. Conspiracy theories, such as the suggestion of an assassination plot involving a sniper, have also emerged over the years. However, these theories lack substantial evidence and rely on speculation rather than verifiable facts, and the idea that Senna was targeted due to his philanthropic work and the anniversary of the formation of the Illuminati seems far-fetched and lacks credibility. Ultimately, without access to crucial evidence, such as the car's black box, which mysteriously disappeared, and the destruction of the car itself, reaching a definitive conclusion about the cause of Senna's accident remains elusive, and while speculation and conspiracy theories persist, they should be approached with skepticism until supported by concrete evidence. So that's going to do it for today, guys. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below about which one of these iceberg parts you liked or found interesting the most. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.